So I will point out that the way you said that, it sounded less about like it was about your comfort. Like I am not a blow your nose with toilet paper kind of person, and more like it was about judgment.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm not one of those kinds of people who blows their nose with toilet paper. I don't know who you think I am.
No, I don't think I judge people for using toilet paper to blow their noses. What happens is I judge people for not having Kleenex as an option. Welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Erin Green.
And I am Michael Gray.
Good morning.
Good morning to both of us.
Hold on, I need to grab a tissue. A proper tissue from a Kleenex box. Just saying.
Okay, so I guess we have to do this. Maybe we need to have an official poll. Okay, so just like 3 seconds ago, we ended a conversation that lasted 45 minutes, probably. I don't know. I asked Erin if she, like when she needs to blow her nose, if she has tissues around the house, like actual Kleenex tissues, or if she just uses toilet paper. And
I was borderline offended by the question.
Yeah, she thought I was like insulting her by insinuating that she might use toilet paper on her delicate nose. No. And we had a very thorough, robust, rigorous conversation about Kleenex versus toilet paper for blowing your nose.
Yeah.
And somehow we wound up in the place that kind of ended when Erin was accusing me of stuffing toilet paper in quote unquote all of my orifices.
I said using it on all your orifices, but
okay.
I mean, if you don't have a tissue to, wipe your eyes or your nose, or I don't know if I'm assuming if you don't buy Kleenex, you might not buy Q-tips for your ears. And so maybe you'd be using toilet paper for that. I don't know.
Why would you assume that? See, she's just
maybe if you don't buy Kleenexes, you don't buy napkins. So you're using toilet paper at the dinner table. Like
maybe we don't buy food either. We just feed our kids toilet paper.
We're talking specifically about paper products here.
I think we're getting pretty off topic.
I think that you're extrapolating this a little too far. Nobody said anything about eating.
I'm not sure that's me.
Right. So this is Middleish, where we meet each other halfway. And so I will learn to accept your anti-Kleenex lifestyle.
I hope you have it in you. I know it's going to be tough for you.
I can work on this. I might lose some sleep over it.
I hope you can find it in your heart. So, but now I'm curious. Unofficial poll. I don't know where you're going to put it. I don't know. In the comments on YouTube, on Instagram.
I think you can. I think there was something I saw on Anchor where you can start putting in questions and polls. So I think so. So
this might be our
try
first
this.
poll.
Yeah, I might try this, y'all. Next time we put this episode up. What are we? Episode 73.
I think. Yeah. We're almost to 75. Which is 3/4 of a century if it was years, but it's not. So
look at the math on you.
Look at that math on me. Got math all over me. Along with
you better wipe it with some toilet paper.
Of my orifices.
So yeah, we'll
Michael,
try and put a
just
poll
covered
up.
In math and toilet paper.
And if we can't do a poll on our podcast, maybe we'll do it on Instagram. So just
just send all your responses to me, and then I'll relate them to Erin in a very unbiased way.
I'm sure.
Just do that. Yeah. Just send them to me, and then she doesn't have to. She's got a lot going on. She doesn't have to worry about it. So
that's very big of you.
I'm
giver, just looking at our
most
schedule.
Of our toilet paper people, we're givers. So we're not elitists.
That's pretty self-sacrificing, not having Kleenex.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking ahead at our schedule, and it would appear that episode 75 is the keto diet. We've been waiting for this one.
We really have. We've been like teasing this one since, I don't know, episode 2, maybe like pretty
I'm not
early on.
entirely sure how it's taken us this long to get it on the calendar, but I think because, I have this saying, remain skeptical but curious. So while I'm skeptical of the keto diet, I'm still curious. Like, I want to hear the latest studies that have come out on it and if anything evolves. And yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will.
Mhm.
We will. And we'll
And
try to
on
find
those
some
lines,
positive
if
notes
any,
for you.
yeah, if anybody has suggestions on topics, we got a few suggestions recently, which are going to be really fun, I think, to talk about. Supplements, flatulence.
Arts.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
We might have an episode where we talk about farts.
Maybe
and
we should
other
get some
bodily functions.
branded whoopee cushions or something. Middleish whoopee cushions.
I mean, I feel like that's as good idea as you've had as any.
I know. Look at me, the brains of the operation.
The brains and the beauty, and then there's me.
Just there's
the other guy.
Just the toilet paper guy. So, what's new in your world, Michael? How was your weekend?
Oh, you mean aside from being highly offended?
Right, because that seems like your style.
A toilet paper person about 10 times this morning. It was, let's see, how was my weekend? It was good. I'm trying to think of what all we did. We had some friends over for dinner on Saturday. That was real fun. I made chicken piccata. I've never made chicken piccata before.
I saw your picture. It looked fantastic.
It was so good.
Nice.
So good. Yeah.
And it was fun. Golden brown too.
It was, nice work. It was delicious. And the people we had over there from France, and she is an excellent cook. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I was like, yes.
Doesn't that feel good? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it was super good. I've never had chicken piccata before. I just found it in a recipe book I have. And I was like, that looks amazing and sounds amazing. Let's give it a go, which is always risky, making a dish for the first time when you're having people over, which I tend to do for some reason. And a few times it hasn't gone well. It's like the recipe, just like there was this one recipe. This was several years ago. It was Pioneer Woman. You know Pioneer Woman. Like her stuff's great. It was these enchiladas where you're roasting all the peppers and everything. It was this big, long process. They were garbage. Like they were not good. And I know I did it right. Like I am 100% positive. I was like these are edible, but I would not make these again. Ever.
What was missing?
I don't remember. It was like 3 years ago. They just didn't have really any flavor. They were exceptionally bland. And it's like, I've got salt in here. I've got sauce. I've got roasted pepper. Like, what is going on? They just were not good.
Oh, yeah. That's such a bummer. I think that's the worst part is when you spend so much time on a recipe, doing all the things and going through all the steps. And then you're like, this actually sucks. I made, so on the lines of this keto topic we're going to talk about, maybe I'll save this story. I'll save the story for them. I made some brownies one time. I'll save the details until we record that episode.
Put that in the notes. Keto brownies.
God.
Yeah. Okay. How was your weekend?
It was nice. What did we do? We went I went for a mountain bike ride one day. We did something. Oh, Saturday, I went up to Bogus and cheered on. We had the state championships for the interscholastic cycling league, I think is what it's called. So all the high schoolers that mountain bike. So I went up to Bogus and did some warm-ups with a couple of the groups and cheered them on and just made an appearance and supported, kids on bikes. So that was really fun. And then came home and had, it still shocks me that I can have just a normal like weekend these days that's not full of 5 or 6 hours of training each day. And so I drove up to Bogus, did all that, drove back home, still had time to I had a phone call with a friend I haven't talked to for a while. I made brownies. I made pad thai. We went to a friend's place for Oktoberfest. We did, I had watched some football, had a normal full Saturday. it's crazy to me how much time I used to spend on the weekends doing training. And even with gravel racing, like it's the same kind of
Yeah, I
thing. Like
bet.
you get ready to go do this crazy long ass ride, and it just takes your entire day. And while I love that, exploring on gravel and just being outside, this time of year, I naturally gravitate toward like, let's just slow down the pace of things. Let's
Mm-hmm.
do some other activities that I know I really
Mm-hmm.
love and enjoy. Um, so yeah, it
Yeah.
was good. And
Nice.
then Sunday we went for Matt's really into Formula One. So had to watch some Formula One. We went for a mountain bike ride, and then our friends rented out a theater at one of the cinemas nearby, and we all watched a
Ooh,
bunch of
nice.
friends, like 20 friends or something. We went and watched the Bond movie together. So double oh
How was
007.
it?
It was good. It
Was it
was
good?
really good. It was very entertaining. And I need, when it comes to those movies, I like action thrillers, and I like the Bond movies, but sometimes they drag on. I mean, because it's like a 3 hour thing, and sometimes I get a little, okay, like, do we really need another action scene here? Do we really need another shoot 'em up scene? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get a little tired of those things unless there's like some really nice plot building that goes on in between. Um, this one I think had those components. It didn't seem to drag on for me. However, at the very end, I was left wishing that they had developed the villain a little more, because the
Mm.
villain had this very sinister plot and plan. Of course, Bond is going to save the world somehow, but it was just a little like flimsy, I guess. Like it just wasn't very deep. And my husband
Mm.
agreed. So that was kind of shocking, because he's, usually with these movies, he's like, I don't know, but he said it was a 9.5 out of 10. So that's a pretty high rating. And
That's
I'm
real
like, what would
high.
have made it a 10? And he goes, well, a perfect movie doesn't exist very often. But he thought it was just that like villain plot thing, like could have
That's pretty
could have
good.
thickened that up.
9.5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's about as close because we don't do 9.6 or 7, right? Like you do half stars.
No,
You don't
that's just
do
silly.
3/4 stars. Get out of here with that. I did think of something else that happened this weekend that I did not say no to. I firmly stated my objections, but I also said this is not my decision because it's a family decision. And so we now have 2 guinea pigs. So
Oh
yeah.
dear. I
Yeah.
mean, oh boy. I mean,
Mhm.
exciting.
Yay. Yeah. The girls are absolutely thrilled. So I'm very happy for them. Um, yeah. So that's a thing that happened. Mhm.
Okay. You
Yeah.
sound supportive of this.
It's fine. I just like, listen, okay, if you guys are going to do this, this is your thing. I'm not going to be responsible for the guinea pigs. This is not something I want. So if we're going to have it, it's
Oh
you
my
guys got to
gosh.
take care of this. So they are so far. But yeah, we
Okay.
got guinea
So
pigs.
far, but it's only been like what, 4 days?
Yeah, we'll see. Because the shine might wear off pretty quick.
I think guinea pigs are, I mean, I know so many friends whose kids want or have guinea pigs or some kind
Mhm.
of other rodent, little furry
Yeah, they're real
critter.
popular.
They are. They stink, don't they?
Nope,
No,
not yet. These don't. They
it's only
haven't.
been 4 days.
I mean, we got them from someone in the neighborhood with like the cage they came in and everything, all their toys, and it doesn't
Okay.
stink. Not
What
yet.
are their names?
Okay, so at this point, Lila might be changing the one she named. It's been Taffy. Um,
That's cute.
and she's talked about maybe changing it. So, but I think at this point it's still Taffy. And then Sophie, it was ice cream cupcake for a little while, and then she decided that that was too much. So now it's Vivo. Have you seen the? You probably haven't seen the cartoon Vivo. It's a
No.
cartoon that came out, I don't know, 6 months ago. It's really good, like exceptional music. What's his name? Manuel Miranda. You know who did Hamilton?
Oh,
The
okay.
guy who did Hamilton. He did this
Yeah.
movie and all the music, and it's really good. But anyway, She named it after the little kinkajou in that movie, Vivo. So yeah,
Cute.
Taffy and Vivo.
Taffy and Vivo.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
got guinea pigs.
Well,
Mhm.
we will be asking for
Yeah.
updates on those guinea pigs.
The dog is super interested in
Fun.
them.
I'm sure.
Yeah, he likes to go and sit and stare.
Yeah, wait for them to get out so he can play,
Or maybe
right?
it's sit and hunt. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't one of those things.
I don't know if the cat knows they're there yet. When she does, she might be pretty interested in them too. We'll see. Except they're
Yeah.
big. They're as big as she is. She's
Yeah.
not a real big cat. And I didn't realize how big guinea pigs were. They're large.
Yeah.
Yeah, like probably 8 or 9 pounds.
Funny. They're
Yeah.
funny
Anyway,
little critters. Cute.
They are pretty cute though. They got those big eyes
Yeah.
and little chompers.
Do they chatter at you?
Sometimes they're kind of still getting used to us. Like they're,
Okay.
especially me, but a little skittish. But they're getting better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, we have a topic.
We do have a topic.
We're talking about kids, teens in particular, teens and teens athletes, and just nutrition for teens, strength training for teens, talking about like just teen athletes, and we'll talk about like specialization and just all kinds of stuff around teens and being healthy. So
this is one age group that we haven't hit on yet. We've talked about kids, younger kids a little bit. We've, obviously talked about like different stages for adults, but we haven't really hit on that teenage demographic. And I think it's unique because teenagers are becoming adults, but they're not adults yet. And so they're in this kind of interesting space where they still need guidance and support and, some parenting. However, they're very much into doing their own thing and into their own world and the social implications of all the things they're doing and eating. And so we're going to have some tips on kind of navigating that space, especially with like what Michael said, nutrition and activity. And hopefully give you guys some tools to help those teens stay healthy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I just wanted to share that when I was working with Bronco football, I had to remind myself that these guys, they look like adults, right? Like they're big dudes. They look like young men, but they're still kids. Like when you meet with them and talk with these, especially the freshmen, which was primarily who I worked with, they're still kids, they're 17, 18, 19-year-old
still
kids.
Growing.
They're still in the teenager phase. And so it was really interesting for me to just see like these college students. I mean, until you hit like junior, senior, 3, 4, 5 years into college, you really haven't like come into that, taking responsibility for certain things. And, there's just some life skills and maturity that comes there. So anyway,
absolutely. Yeah. So you want to start just like general nutrition for teens, because we do want to talk about teen athletes, but you also just want to talk about kind of teens in general. So we'll we'll bounce around a little bit, but let's just maybe start with just nutrition in general for teens, and then we can get specific. Is that cool?
Yeah. So, I mean, just thinking about nutrition, I like to remind everybody that nutrition is pretty simple. Like 90% of nutrition, whether you're an athlete, a teenager, child, adult, whatever, is really just the basics of the my plate, or, balancing things based on the food groups, having multiple meals and snacks a day, getting lots of colorful fruits and vegetables. I mean, these are not novel concepts. I think the challenge that comes in with teenagers is there are certain food groups that we see start suffering in the teenage years, particularly dairy and protein, surprisingly, because a lot of even parents are surprised when I say, protein tends to be low for teenagers, because teenagers generally like chicken or beef, or, they seem to drink a lot of milk, like they should be fine with proteins, but actually it's getting enough daily that we run into a problem with that, because I run into a lot of teens that are skipping lunch, or they have a low protein breakfast, or whatever, and so protein is a big one. And that dairy group. And then obviously the vegetables. Fruits tend to be better. However, fruit juice actually takes precedent over whole fruit. So that becomes an issue with teenagers. And I mean, this is an issue with children too. We see that
Mhm.
trend in children, but many times parents can be guided into, let's give those children more whole fruit choices. And that ends up translating with teenagers. Obviously, they might hit the vending machine, or they might just have like the juice for
Right.
breakfast and they just skip the fruit. And so we're kind of running into that trend. And then vegetables just suffer a lot with
With
every age
everyone.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. And
Mhm.
I think it's really important. We've talked about this before, but it's important to understand that when we say fruits and vegetables, we tend to lump them together. Vegetables should be eaten in a larger quantity more often than fruit. So when we hear these recommendations, like there was the 5 a day campaign years back where they said 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, I've even heard 8. Um, I think it's important to remember that like vegetables should be more than fruit. If you were to take all of your meals and snacks for the day, or your teenagers' meals and snacks, and lay them out and look at what they're eating, you should have a bigger pile of veggies, ideally, than fruit. Now that can be hard to get teenagers to eat more vegetables. So we'll talk about some strategies there. There's different ways to just remember that little additions make a huge difference if you're
Right.
working on that. Specific
So,
nutrients would be, calcium, potassium,
yes.
and fiber are also um, nutrients of concern in the teenager's diet.
Okay. So when you talk about like protein being um, like insufficient for most teens across the board, now this is my speculation, but I'm asking you because you would know better. My thought is that they probably eat protein in a regular basis with meals, but teens need, because they're growing so much at such a rapid rate, they need a lot more calories than they're going to get in 3 meals, right? And
Mhm.
my suspicion would be that most of those additional calories are made up of chips and crackers and fast
Mhm.
food and candy and that kind of stuff. So they get, like, from a parent's point of view, well, they're getting protein at every meal, but it's like, yeah, but that's like 50% of the calories they're getting in the day. Like there's all
Right.
these other calories they need and are getting on a regular basis that probably don't have any protein in them. Is that accurate or no?
That's a pretty good description, especially
Okay.
with that whole calorie level consideration, because we do see that, yes, teens are still growing and developing. It's huge because all of their
Mhm.
body tissues require protein, like your
Mhm.
skin, your hair, your fingernails, not to mention athletes that are using their muscles, in and connective tissues in multiple ways. Your
Working
immune
out.
system
Yeah.
yeah, your immune system relies on proteins to stay moving smoothly. Your bones rely on protein. Like there's so many different functions of protein in the body that when we have the demands of growth and development on top of the physical activity demands, and just on top of, a body that's getting bigger literally by the week because it's still growing, we have higher protein demands. Now, if we start looking at it as a percentage of calories, I'm looking at, this was an estimate from a study. It's quite a while ago. It's like over 15 years ago, but it's a pretty good estimate of daily calorie needs for, males or females of certain ages that are involved in heavy physical activity daily. And for 16 to 17-year-old boys, it's like 3,800 to 3,900 calories. Now, these are just estimates. I have
Mhm.
met boys that eat way more than that and need way more than that. And I have met
Mhm.
boys that are fine with less. And then for girls, it's about 28 to 2,900 calories a day. Now, again, I've met girls that need far more than that, and I've met girls that need less than that, but those are like ballpark numbers. So if
Yeah.
let's just say for the sake of things, like 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day for a heavily active, teenager, 16, 17, 18-year-old. If you're looking at a percentage of calories from protein, all of a sudden those protein needs start really getting quite high. I mean,
Mhm.
we're then looking at like, over 100 grams of protein per day easily for these
Right.
kids. And if you're considering that, like, a bagel has 8 grams, or a handful of goldfish might have 1 or 2 grams, or juice has 0 grams. And you start looking at these things that kids are eating, all of a sudden we start running. That's where we run into that deficit. And the other thing is, a lot of kids are gravitating towards ultra processed foods. Okay. So ultra processed would be anything that undergoes multiple processes from its origin. So a lot of times it doesn't even resemble or taste like or smell like its original food, right? A lot of kids are eating these ultra processed foods. And when we look at in the protein department, a lot of times we're seeing things like chicken nuggets or hot dogs or whatever it is. When kids are relying on those protein sources, you're actually not getting as efficient of a protein source as if you get the original food. So like a chicken breast, if you're eating 3 ounces of chicken breast, you're actually getting primarily protein. Whereas if you're eating 3 ounces of chicken nuggets, you're also getting some fat, some sodium, some breading, some, fillers and whatever else mixed in there. So we have to look at like the protein sources too, and how efficiently they are providing those protein grams for our kids, and distribution. So that's the last thing I'll say about protein for these teenagers is it is far more effective for their bodies to get protein doses throughout the day, morning, midday, maybe afternoon, maybe evening, maybe 4 or 5 specific doses, versus no protein at breakfast, maybe a little protein at lunch, no protein for afternoon snack. And then they have this huge dinner that's very robust in protein.
Right.
So yeah, spread it out.
Spread it out. So speaking of like kids and caloric demands, I mean, I have no idea what my caloric demand was when I was like 14, 15, 16, but I know it was a lot. Like this was for a while. On like every day I would, have my breakfast, go to school, have my lunch, which was a lot of stuff. And then I'd come home, and between coming home and dinner, I would eat on a regular basis. I would make 2 packages of ramen and a triple decker grilled ham and cheese sandwich. And that's a lot of food, right? And I would eat that. I mean, I don't know how many calories that is. It's a lot of space. And then I would eat a big old dinner 2 hours later. Like there were periods of time in my teenage years where it's just like, I just never felt full. I felt maybe satisfied, but never like full. It was just like, I felt like I couldn't eat enough food, and then I'd have a big old dinner, and then I'd have some huge old snack later on, like a sleeve of cookies and 3 glasses of milk, or you know what I mean? Like it was just, you're eating constantly, My oldest brother, I think it was, he would go to a gallon of milk a day, every day. My parents were like, we can't keep enough milk. Like we're just constantly buying milk.
And Matt was the same way. Yeah. Matt was talking. So my husband, for those of you who have never seen him or met him, he's tall and slender and kind of lanky. Like he just has that body type that is seems to be very efficient with food and calories. And he eats a lot. I mean, obviously less than he did when he was a teenager, but he talks about, he got a job at a fast food restaurant in his town just so he could have access to more food.
Smart move.
And he would like you talk about these grilled ham and cheese double-decker sandwiches. He would make like, cause it was a burger joint. So he'd make like these grilled buns with cheese in between, like these melted cheese, like double and triple decker sandwiches, because they could eat as much as that as they wanted, but they weren't allowed to eat like extra burgers and patties other than, this is your, and then if there were like leftover fries that weren't served and they were just like in the fry basket and they had to be discarded, he'd just eat those. So yeah.
Sounds like a dream.
I remember a few times in high school, man, I hit the stage where I was so hungry all the time as well. And I mean, I'm a little person, but man, my appetite just went crazy when I kind of hit those, 15, 16, 17-year-old, age ranges. And I was very active too, but I would come home and make like one of those Tony's frozen pizzas. I don't know. They're like 8-inch frozen pizza or something. And that would be my afternoon snack. Or I would make a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a big glass of milk. So I think now Michael and I are sharing all these ideas, and this doesn't mean that this is what we want your teenager relying on for their snack. I think there's two takeaways here. One is that I commonly see just about every teenager I work with, whether they are a high achieving athlete or they're just kind of a regular active teen, that afternoon snack time is huge. First of all, they've been at school all day, their brain is working, maybe they've had just some light activity, they're up walking to and from class. I mean, it's, relatively active day. They're ready to eat. It's time. So make sure that you have a good, some good snack options. We'll talk about specifics here in a little bit. Secondly, I think it's important to acknowledge what is going on earlier in the day that brings on that crazy ass appetite toward the end of the day, which would be, how's breakfast? Are you skipping breakfast? Does breakfast have adequate calories, protein, fat, carbs, all that stuff? What's happening at lunch? Do they have an opportunity for a mid-morning snack? Is there more time
Right.
or more opportunity to fit in more nutrition earlier in the day so then we don't get the hangries when we come home from
Right.
school?
And I think that's what a lot of it was for me, and probably a lot of kids, is that like as a teenager, I could eat a lot every few hours. And
Mm-hmm.
if my lunch is at 11:30 and then I don't get out of school till 3:30, like, yeah,
Yep.
I've need to eat a whole meal in between now and then, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And now I probably could have done some good planning if I thought about it for a second, but I was a dumb kid and didn't do any kind of planning, right? But I think the reality is when kids get home from school, oftentimes they haven't eaten for several hours and their
Mm-hmm.
bodies needed to,
Mm-hmm.
and so they get home and it's like, give me food, like give me so much food right now, because their bodies have been through a lot. Like school's challenging. School takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy and
Yeah.
you burn through stuff, thinking and learning new concepts and applying them. Like that's energy spent, we got to
Mm-hmm.
work hard doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
And
there are
this,
some days where I think Sophie might eat more than I do. Literally.
yeah, I believe
I'm
it.
not kidding. Like there are periods where she's
Sophie is his
growing.
5-year-old, everybody.
Yes. Yes. It's my grandma. Now, there are periods like when she's growing where it's just like, it's constant, like every
Yeah.
hour or two, like it's like large amounts of food. And then a
Mm-hmm.
few hours later, can I have a snack? Can I eat? And it's like, gosh, kid, like you're
I
eating so
know.
much food. And it's because they need that. You know what I mean? So when we see
Mm-hmm.
these our teenagers getting really hungry, it's because there's a demand, because growing is serious work. Learning is serious work.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
just they're in a very high demand for, at a time of life where they have a really high demand for energy. And so we need to meet that. But like Aaron's saying, I think it's smart to be smart about it and have a plan where, sure, absolutely crush, 2 packages of ramen. Sure, but let's get some veggies in there too. Yeah, make those
Mm-hmm.
triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with chocolate chips in it or whatever. Awesome. But let's make sure we're getting some other stuff too. And it's not just that stuff, because that's going to help them, in school, and if they're athletes, on the court or field or whatever as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just going back to that caloric level, like if we're looking at 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day for very active teens, obviously a less active teen or a smaller teen, or just some individuals just don't have that high of a need. Let's say it's 2,000, 2,500 calories a day, whatever it ends up being. You have to look at how is that going to be distributed. If we're trying to get 3,000 calories into a teenager and they're only eating 3 times a day, those meals have to be 1,000 calories each. That's a lot of freaking food.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, it might be more realistic to then split that into 5 or 6 different eating opportunities in the day. Then what does that look like? Well, each meal might be around 600 to 700 calories. And then we might have 200 to 300 calorie snacks in between. How are we going to put that together? And
Mm-hmm.
when I sit down with parents and teenagers together, we start talking through this kind of stuff. And the teens are usually, first of all, you have to have buy-in, right? Like teenagers are not are not willing to make changes if it's being shoved down their throat. There's probably going to
Right.
be some rebellion or whatever. But most teens that I visit with, they're open and they're experts in their own world. So they're pretty honest about, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I do feel the energy slump in the afternoon, or yeah, I am getting really hungry by lunchtime. I could probably stand to eat something around 10 a.m. So we start looking for these opportunities to like, okay, could we have a little trail mix in there? Could you take like a shelf stable carton of milk or something in your backpack so you can just chug that on your way to class? Is there like a handheld, like a half a PB&J that you can eat on, in between classes? Like, are there bars or something like that? With teenagers also, if you're trying to get those extra vegetables and fruits in there, talk to them about ways this might look and how we can do this. Does it mean we have to have like some prepared options in the fridge at home that you can just grab and go? Are there things that they like in combination? Can you put some veggies in their breakfast burrito, or can you put some veggies on a sandwich that they're willing to eat? Some kids like V8. I mean, kids like to drink things more than eat things these days. So see if you can make a smoothie with spinach in it. See if you can get some V8 into them. There's lots of different creative ways. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It really just needs to be talking with your teenager and kind of getting them on board with some of the things they think they might need and might help them. If they see it as being helpful in any way, they're far more likely to do it than having parents say, you need to just do this.
Yeah. So. I think fruit on a PB&J is a really good way to go. Really good way to get some in, because it like thinly sliced apple or banana or even like strawberry with
smash up some berries. Yeah.
That is good. Yep. It's a good way to get in some extra fruit too. But yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was something else that your last comment had sort of, just talking about, I know a lot of parents are concerned about processed foods, and I'm looking at this statistic from a study actually done this year, where 67% of total calories consumed by children and teenagers, 67% are ultra processed, not just processed, but ultra processed. And this means like it's gone through multiple steps, right? It's unrecognizable from its original form, or, has a bunch of stuff added to it. How do we move the needle back into the realm of, maybe partially processed or lightly processed, or even like, just whole natural foods? I think just looking for opportunities, like what are some whole natural foods that your teen likes to eat? How can we leverage those and offer those more often? Most teens will eat like a banana or a cutie or an apple. They might eat baby carrots. They might eat, sugar snap peas or a salad or something like that. How can you leverage those things? And how can you leverage some of the things that are lightly processed? How can you find some of the fruit and nut bars, or like trail mix or something like that has like some dried fruit in it? How can you, get like green juices that have some veggies in it? How can you, work some vegetables into certain things that they like? Maybe there's a lot of, microwavable kind of freezer things and bowls and different things that have beans and vegetables in them. Like, if your kid is willing, it's only nutrition if your child eats it. So if you think that just having the foods in the fridge, that's step one, but in the forms that your kid is actually going to eat them.
Right.
So
like Hot Pockets,
look at ways you can do that.
Right.
Sure. Those fit too.
Yeah.
Hot Pockets, Bagel Bites. Yep. And those fit too. Now, those are ultra processed. So
come on.
I know.
Those are in their pretty natural state.
Wah, wah. I know. I have a Hot Pocket tree right outside my window here.
Yeah. And I have a Bagel Bite bush.
Exactly. I need to get one of those and plant that in my garden.
Right. That'd be pretty good. Yeah. Just here's a fresh Bagel Bite for you.
I think the important thing is, if your child likes those things, how can you pair them with something that's, unprocessed? How can you, think about some of those nutrients that we know are kind of missing. Fiber is missing, and potassium, calcium, just those vegetable servings. Like, how can we kind of put this together?
Yeah. I know as a teenager,
get creative. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right. Like, I would have been a lot more likely to eat like fruits or vegetables if it was like, hey, here's a microwavable pizza and an apple, right?
Yeah.
Or some carrot sticks, versus like, here's the apple or some carrot sticks. Like if it was with something that's awesome that I like, okay, yeah, fine. I'll eat this first and then I'll have the pizza and everything will be great.
Mhm.
So I mean, ideally, would it be great if teenagers never ate that stuff? Sure. It would be ideal if none of us ever ate ultra processed food. Yeah, of course, that would be
Might
ideal.
be ideal for you.
We don't live in an ideal
I'd
world.
miss it.
Okay, as far as like health goes, as far as
Okay.
enjoyment, screw that. Like, sorry, no, thank you. I love me a good frozen
Sounds
pizza.
like a dark world.
Yeah, I don't want that. And your kids, like, that's what's normal. Like, that's what kids around them are eating. I think there's like, you find commonalities there and there's acceptance there. Like, this is just part of being a teenager, right? And so I think we include that and we allow them to eat the things that they want to eat. But if we can, like Erin's saying, just bring in some other stuff along with it, one, we can help meet that caloric demand a little better and just introduce, more vitamins and nutrients and fiber and all that kind of stuff that they need to grow and function well.
I think it's good also to kind of set the precedence that this is what a meal looks like to our family. This is what a snack looks like to our family. And this is something that starts in early childhood, where you do have like the multiple food groups and everybody eats the same thing. And you can, there's not a lot of like straightforward answers to how this works for your child or your family. I think the big overarching message is, really setting that example in your home with everybody in your family. I mean, even if you have someone that has, gluten intolerance or a food allergy or, something like that, or I get parents that, the moms are like, well, I don't need to add extra calories to my diet, but I'm trying to get more extra calories into my teenager that needs 3,000 or 4,000 a day. I need half that much. What do I do? You can eat the same foods. It's just it's different quantities. It's different composition. Maybe you don't put as much extra like condiments or whatever, cheese or something on your plate. There's ways to do this and eat as a family. And again, kind of set that precedence. I think it also, again, have this conversation with your teenager and find out where they are at with their nutrition, because the teens that I've worked with are pretty smart. And if you really just open up that conversation, they're able to provide some insight. And I will tell you that skipping lunch is ask what they're doing at school, ask what they're doing at lunchtime, because a lot of these kids are not eating lunch. And it boggles my mind because I ate like a horse at lunch at school. It's your only chance to eat, You know
how excited I got about lunch? Of course, we got to go off campus. So we got to go get fast food every day, which was awesome. So we got real excited about lunch.
Yeah,
and it was
didn't
a
really
mad
have that.
dash out of that parking lot. It was not safe at all because we had like 25 minutes.
Oh yeah. Right? So you got to make
and you have like 600 kids going out in the town to go to fast food.
You're trying to cut your friend off in the drive-through.
Oh, yeah.
We get going there first.
Going like 60 down like 35 mile an hour roads because you're just like, we gotta hurry.
Michael.
8 people in a car, Yeah. So let's talk.
Parents listening to this are like freaking out right now, thinking about what their teens are doing.
Now. Yeah, that was. I'm
sure
everything's different, safer now. Yeah. So let's talk about just exercise. With just teens in general. I think that it's a really good idea to introduce exercise into your, if you haven't already, into your teenagers' regular weekly routine. Now, what that looks like, I think depends. I think it's important as a parent to set that precedent, right? Like as parents, I think it's easy for us to ask our kids to do things that we're not doing, right? And kids see through that real quick, and they kind of see our BS. Like if you're not setting the example, you can't expect your kid to do it. Like we can't expect our kids to be more responsible than we are, right? So I think just, for the parents out there of teenagers, like anything you're going to ask your kid to do, you got to be doing, whether that's, nutrition, exercise, whatever. From there, I think, exploring things that your kid likes, whether that's, sports after school or some kind of club or something that you do together, that's like evening walks or going for bike rides, or maybe, you play tennis with your kid, whatever it is. I think finding things that you enjoy or they enjoy, or you both enjoy together to do, is a really good place to start. And just trying to be mindful of getting some sort of activity on a regular basis, at least 3 or 4 times a week would be ideal, for 20 or 30 minutes. More would be awesome, but just doing something in some sort of physical way is great. That being said, I think there's a real strong case for strength training for teens, any teen, because I really believe, and I don't believe this because I'm a personal trainer. I believe this because I've seen this play out, and there's just a bunch of data for it, that strength training is key for anyone to be a healthy person. It, that sort of demand on your body, and that, getting stronger, the metabolic adaptations that happen, like there's just so much that is so beneficial for being healthy and for staying healthy. And if we can establish these behaviors and routines, and just as this is kind of what we do in these teenage years, your kid's a lot more likely to continue those patterns throughout into adulthood and later on in life than they are to adopt them at a later point, right? If they just grow up and this is just kind of what we do as a family, this is just part of how we live life, then they're probably going to continue to do that. A quick caveat: I think it is important to make sure that your intention with your teen is not about like losing weight or staying quote unquote skinny or anything like that, or
turning everything into a competition or
exactly. Yeah. Don't be one of those a-hole dads that has to like beat their kid at everything. Come on. But like you've seen
or
them,
moms.
Right? Yeah. Okay. They're there, I guess. Probably
Parents in general, but guys tend to have a little more. Yeah.
But if you can explore spaces with your kid that are like, hey, let's like feel or explore what it feels like to just move our bodies and to use them in different ways, and to like, how do our bodies feel afterwards, and what is it like, how does it feel to get stronger and be able to accomplish something you couldn't a few weeks ago because you're stronger now, and just in really healthy body image type ways. I think you're setting your kid up for a really good relationship with movement and with their bodies, because it's not about we exercise so that we get this result. It's we just exercise, and that's what we do, and if we can explore spaces that look like that, I think we're really setting your kid up for just a lifetime of a lot healthier relationship with exercise and activity and the gym and their body and all that stuff. So
yeah. I think another good point to piggyback on what you're saying is, when it comes to organized sports, allow your child to explore that and find their joy in the sport. So maybe you're a super competitive person as an adult, and it's important that you work your hardest and that you beat that team or whatever. Really, really try hard, parents, not to impart your goals onto your child, and not to project the type of athlete you are and why you love the certain sport onto your child. Find out why your children love the sport. And, I'll let you talk about specificity here, Michael, and like specializing in a certain sport too early, but I'm going to launch it by saying, let's say this, parent just totally loves soccer, and they wanted to get their kid into soccer early, and they started playing soccer ball with their kid, kicking it around or whatever at an early age. And then they got into, soccer, and they all of a sudden are going to camps, and it's a year-round thing, and it's soccer all the time. It's all year long, and it's every weekend and all this stuff. Take a step back and be open to hearing like how much your child loves this, what they love about it, if there might be room or maybe some purpose in having another sport to kind of balance that out, or another activity. Like you just outlined all these different things that, families can do together. I think that's another important perspective for parents to have as they're working, especially we get into teenagers where we're looking at college scholarships, and, sports become there's a lot more emphasis on the competitive side of things.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. And not even just, because I do think that's really important, like to listen to your kid about what they are enjoying and that kind of stuff. But also as a parent, like it's our job to, as adults, to know things our kids don't, right? And to understand that even if my kid wants to play soccer year round for the next 10 years, maybe that's not the best choice for them. And so as a parent, it's our
Right.
job to help them or to make for them sometimes the best choices. Right. And so, Aaron, you kind of like got into that specialization thing. And I really want to touch on this because it's something I feel really strongly about. And I think is important because we see at very early ages now, like 9, 10, we see kids special,
Yeah.
geez, that's hard for me to say,
Specialize.
specializing in a sport. And so they play that sport in the season. Like let's take baseball, for example. They play it in the spring and then they play some summer league team and then they play fall ball. And then through the winter, they're part of this, 2-month, 3-month long camp or special club thing. And they're playing a specific sport all year round. Like this is not uncommon. And this isn't just the fault of the parents. This is a whole system thing because there are teams kids who play these club teams are the one who make the school teams because it's the same coaches and they want the same kids, and there's all this kind of stuff that really kind of monkeys up the whole system. But the issue with specialization, I mean, anywhere from 10 to like 16, 17, 18 is that these kids are still growing, right? They are constantly growing from year to year. Their bodies are wildly different. And when you look at pro athletes, like their specialization in a specific sport, it's hard on their bodies, right? Like again, using baseball, like okay, any sport, you have like volleyball, basketball, whatever, you do the same type of movements over and over and over. And this is hard on a body, right? That's like we see people who do like certain types of labor jobs, right? Like they're physically active, great, but they're doing the same type of like physically active thing over and over and not other things. This causes serious issues in the body. It sets us up for real injuries, maybe lifelong things, maybe chronic things that we have to deal with. And that's the case with the most elite athletes in the world. It's hard on their bodies, right? Like you see surgeries all the time for these overuse injuries because their bodies just can't handle it. So now we're going to take the same type of demand or more, because here's the thing about pro athletes, they have long off seasons, right? Where they're seriously resting.
And they're not going to school and they don't have a job outside of,
and that's all they're doing. And when they're in season, their recovery protocols are intense and serious, right? So like there's a real high priority in these major leagues looking at, we need to really take care of these people's bodies because even though they're done developing, their mechanics aren't changing at all. This is seriously demanding and we're putting their bodies at risk of injury. Okay, so that's the best in the world. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take an 11-year-old kid and he's going to throw that ball or, run on that field, do whatever over and over and over and over all year long for years and years and years, while their body is constantly changing, constantly growing. And, their femurs are longer now, and now their arms longer, and now their chest is broader. And now, just everything's constantly changing. So you think about like someone, a pitcher, right? Pitching is the most violent movement in sports. It's the hardest, like most velocity movement in sports, right?
All you have to do is see it in slow motion or see a pitcher's arm paused in the middle of that. You're using your arm like a slingshot or like what's that? There's like a weapon or something that what is it called? Where you like swing
like the mace kind of thing.
Yeah. Then you like launch the whatever. Anyway, it's gnarly. What the
it's
shoulder,
violent.
the elbow, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so you have a kid who's like still developing and they're trying to have like a certain, like, what would you call it? Like their whole pitch routine, right? They're trying to get mechanics down of it. Well, you know what? 3 months later, the mechanics have to be different because their body's different. And 6 months later, the mechanics have to be, and it's constant change. And so what we see like a lot of, the more a kid specializes, the more likely they are to have these serious overuse injuries. Right. They're also a lot more likely to just burn out because this sucks and I'm tired of playing baseball for the last 4 years straight, right? see increased psychological issues around it because it becomes obsessive. It's like, this is a whole identity. They don't have as much time with friends. It's like really focused here. A lot of times it's not what they really want. It's what the parent wants. The parent's trying to quote unquote set them up for success down the road, but really they're just like burdening them with all this pressure. And on top of all of that, what we see is lowered athleticism. Because what kids really need as they're going through the developing years, if you want them to be a good baseball player, have them play basketball and football and run track too. If you want your kid to be a good volleyball player, have them play tennis and track and swim. Like, they need to fully develop their athleticism, because that's what makes really strong athletes, right? It's not that they're good at this one specific thing. It's that they are very athletic. I remember hearing a quote from, I don't remember who the coach was, but he was like an assistant coach for one of the Major League Hockey teams. And this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And he was saying that just across the board, every year for the last several years, the rookies they've been getting are not as good as they used to be. They don't have the athleticism. And it's because these kids are very early on specializing in hockey. And for 6, 7, 8 years before they're eligible to be in the major leagues, right, all they've been playing is hockey. And they haven't developed power and speed and reaction in all the ways that they can develop it. And so they're not as good, not even close. He's like, it's a marked difference since specialization has become such a big thing in the quality of athletes that we have to pick from, which is wild. And it actually works against the kid in a lot of ways. So I am very anti-specialization. I think, yeah, you couldn't. Okay. And honestly, people who are much brighter than me that work with like major league populations, I cannot talk.
You are making up words today.
Populations.
Awesome.
It's specialized
populations and specializations.
Yeah. A population is a specialized population. You didn't know that? It's probably because you use Kleenex. But
I know.
Yeah. But across the board, they're like, it's a bad idea. We wish people wouldn't do this with their kids for their kids' sake. And because we just don't have the talent to draw from anymore,
Yeah. Yeah. All really great points. And I think something that needs to be addressed as we talk about healthy teens in general and just this age group. One other thing I will throw out there, and this ties into diet and nutrition as well, and it puts this all together with a Middleish concept that, as Michael said, as parents and as adults, it is our job to understand the ways of the world and to maybe think a few steps ahead. Teenagers are in the here and now. They are in what's right in front of them. They're in, they care about like socially what's going on in their world. They care about like right now. Parents and adults have a greater capacity to have that critical thinking down the road and to, sort of think about how the next 10 steps might go. I would really encourage parents to, if your child loves a certain sport, or if your child, I have parents tell me, well, my kid is just such a healthy eater. They'll choose this over this. They'll choose, and it's always healthy stuff. Like they'll choose vegetables over, whatever. They don't eat dips with their vegetables. And they kind of have this perception that, oh, my child chooses this and I'm so proud of them because it's so healthy, or because they love that sport. They want to work really hard at it. Be aware that your child, I'm not saying your kid has OCD or something, but there could be some compulsive tendencies that those of us with type A personalities have. And these traits can lend themselves to getting off that Middleish track and getting into an extreme, even if that extreme is perceived as maybe being a good thing by the parent. Oh, my kid is like the star basketball player. They love it. They work really hard. They never miss a practice, even if they're sick. I've heard that one. They could be dog tired and they still go, or they only eat healthy foods. They won't even touch a cookie. Okay, let's just acknowledge that some of these things that we might think are quote healthy or good in our kids and teenagers might be planting a seed for a little bit of that like compulsive trait of being in the extreme. So I'm saying this just to kind of open your eyes and be willing to be that person that helps swing the pendulum back into center a little bit and make it
Right.
okay for them. And then even encourage, like, this choose engaging in this other sport, you could have a whole different set of friends. It could be low pressure because you don't really give a hoot how you do it at track meet. It's just really improves your physical fitness or whatever. Having a cookie or a piece of cake is great. Let's all do it as a family one night. A week will be our dessert night, whatever it ends up being. See if you can bring things back to center a little bit if you start noticing that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I might be I might be helping parents even see that in themselves, because I know a lot of adults that get into that extreme mindset and they think it's so good because they're so disciplined and they're so good at this. They're making all the healthy or right choices. Well, are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. Was that your bow? Did you just put a bow on it?
I think it was a bow. Yeah.
I think you bowed it up.
Middleish ending to that.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. So
yeah, I like that we planned on talking about kind of teen athletes originally, and this just kind of, it was more about just teens in general with touching on teen athletes. And I
think we could get into some there's a few different directions we could go with this topic, and there's more we could talk about. So if you listen to this and you think, hey, I would like to hear more about this specific scenario or whatever, the specific topic with teenagers or any of that, let us know. Middleish@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We do love to hear from you. Well, not you, but you guys over there. Not you right there.
Yeah.
But the rest of you.
Not you. You. So my meaning in the mundane is kind of a funny one this week. And it actually happened a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
It's a bit of a story attached to it, but I'll try and make it entertaining and brief.
You better.
So
I want to laugh and I want to cry.
Our last house that we rented was on a very popular bike thoroughfare street. And I think I've mentioned this before. We have these big, like, picture windows, in the front, like where our dining room table was. And we always had the blinds open because our kitty liked to sit in the window and watch the world. Right. And quite frankly, we loved watching all the bikes and the runners and joggers go by. So we would see this guy ride his bicycle by our house almost like clockwork around 7:15, 7:30 every evening. He would be riding by, and I kid you not, 90% of the time he would be riding with no hands, just sitting up on his bicycle, just spinning, hands behind his back, just looking around. I mean, you can tell the guy, and he's dressed kind of in, business casual. So we start kind of telling ourselves a story. We named him Edward No Hands was his name, because he's riding with no hands most of the time.
I like it.
And we're like, okay, he probably works downtown. He's riding home from work, and we're talking year round, rain or shine, winter. We saw Edward No Hands go by, and Matt and I began saying oh, there goes Edward No Hands, or, I saw Edward No Hands today. We had a few other cyclists that we named that we'd see on a regular basis. Rocky. There's another guy named, he wears a gray hooded sweatshirt. His name's Rocky in our world. So Edward No Hands. We were talking when we moved in August, how much we would miss seeing all these runners, cyclists, everybody going by. Well, now that's our route. We ride by our old house all the time to go to the foothills. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we're coming home from our ride and we intersect with Edward No Hands, and we sneak in kind of behind him. And I'm like in front of Matt, and he was laughing. Yes, totally. I was like, where does he go? I've always wondered where he goes. And so we followed him, but not like in the creeper sense. We followed him only because he was literally going on our route. And every time he would take a turn, and I'd look back at Matt and I'd be nodding and I'd be like, he's going our way. He's going the same direction. Matt was laughing so hard at me because I was getting such a kick out of, I don't have to be that weirdo that's, quote, following him. He's actually going our route. And then he ended up turning off in this apartment complex. And I was like, oh, does he know is there like a shortcut to get in through this place, or does he live here? I was not willing to follow him in to find out, because
I
that
thought you were going to
totally
say you
would be
did.
stalker. No, but so there's still a mystery with Edward No Hands. But Matt and I were just laughing, like, what if we met him randomly, like in, just a life occurrence, and his name was actually Edward? And I mean, we
That'd
have
be
this
wild.
story, this whole story about Edward No Hands that we tell ourselves, but there's still a little mystery there. So that is
I
my meaning
like
in the
it.
mundane. It was just really fun to, you know, I mean, I wonder how many people in the world serve that purpose for other people, where it's just like somebody that you see
Hmm.
in your, that walks by your street, or that you run into the grocery
Hmm.
store because you guys happen to go at the same time every day, or that and you kind of
Hmm.
make up a little story about them. And
Hmm.
it was just really fun for Matt and I. And we're like, this guy probably has no idea that
No idea.
he is this
Yeah,
person in our life, but we really like him.
that's awesome. I like that a lot. That's super funny. So for me, mine was last Friday. Kathleen and I forgot to mention this when I was talking about my weekend. We went out on a date. First time we'd been out on a date in a while. And we went to this little wine bar on the bay, just like 5 minutes, 10 minutes away. And we just sat outside on the patio, overlooking the bay, and we had good drinks and good food. And the sun was setting as we were sitting
Mm,
there, and we just sat for a couple hours, and just like we ordered some drinks and an appetizer, and we just took our time, and we're like, maybe we'll go somewhere else to eat, maybe we'll stay here, let's just kind of figure it out, no pressure. And as opposed to like where we're going to go and where we're going to eat, it's
yeah,
just
the
like,
itinerary.
let's just kind of do what we want. And we sat there for 30 minutes after we finished our appetizer, and we're like, well, let's just go and order food here, let's see what they got, and just sat outside and watched the sunset and just spent some really good quality time together. It was really nice. It's been far too long since we'd got out on a date together, and it was just really nice to have that time of just hanging out, and no kids, trying not to talk about just our kids, because that's really hard too, because it's the
Yeah,
only thing you talk about all day long, right? So
naturally.
what are you into these days?
Yeah, naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
But
it was a
I
really nice time. We had a
I
great time.
appreciate those leisurely um
Hmm.
moments where, with your partner, where it's just calming down the hustle bustle, and
Let's
like you
just
said,
sit.
let's talk about some other things,
Hmm.
in your life, or thoughts that you're having, or
Yeah,
whatever,
we just got to
observations.
sit and be, which was really
I
nice.
like it.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Very
Yeah.
good. Good
Well,
stuff.
yeah. Thanks everybody for
Okay.
listening about teenagers and food and nutrition and sports and exercise and all that jazz.
And
And if
toilet
you
paper.
and toilet paper, yes, toilet paper versus Kleenex, let me know and I'll pass it on to Aaron. Remember, reply only to me, just send it to me, and I will distill the information and give her what she needs to know. In my very
That's not
unbiased
how it's
way.
going to happen.
Are you sure?
That's not how it's going to happen.
Are you sure?
So, thank you for listening to Middleish.
Yep. If you like what we're doing, please share, subscribe, send it to a friend. You can support us through listener support. There's a link down below. This either where you listen to the podcast in the description, or on YouTube down in the description. We'd love to have your support. We'd love to have you share and recommend it to a friend. We'd love to spread the message of what we're doing.
All right.
So,
Thanks.
thanks everybody.